Okay, so I'll kick off, and if we have any stragglers, I'm sure they'll be able to catch up. Um, Thank you very much, everyone, for coming to this local plan update webinar. This particular webinar is focused on the sustainable infrastructure topic and is an opportunity for you to hear a short presentation and ask questions of the team. Before we begin the webinar properly, I'd like to outline the housekeeping arrangements for this section and to explain the format. So, Caroline, if you could just move us on to the next slide, please. Sorry, the one before that. You beat me to it. You already gone on. Thank you. So please note that this webinar will be recorded and will be uploaded publicly on YouTube for the benefit of others. And that's primarily just in case people who did want to listen in but weren't able to attend, they'll be able to watch this recording, which records the audio and the PowerPoint presentation. All attendee microphones, excuse me, and videos have been turned off and will remain turned off. To ask questions, please use the Q&A function within Zoom at the bottom of the screen. We'll attempt to answer the questions verbally so everyone can hear what the answers are. But if we run out of time, we'll try and make a record and email you responses. So we're going to have about a 20 to 30 minute presentation today, followed by a Q&A session with the panel. And on the panel today, we've got Martin Elliott, Head of Service for Strategic Planning, myself, Adam Harvat, Group Manager for Policy and Plans, Caroline Harris, Principal Planner in the Policy and Plans Group, Nazreen Yunis, Principal Planner in the Policy and Plans Group, and Caroline Harris, Planning Assistant in the Policy and Plans Group, who's going to be managing the Q&A session for us. So next slide, please, Caroline. So what is this consultation about? Well, we're consulting on the local plan update, as you know, which will eventually contain a suite of new planning policies to help tackle the climate emergency. This is the early stage of consultation, known as a scoping consultation. And this is about seeking agreement on what broad topics should be included in the plan. But it's also about ideas and options generated both by ourselves, but also by you as well as consultees. At this stage, it's not so much about detailed policies. So broadly speaking, what we're looking for from this consultation is an understanding of whether people agree with our scope of policies or not, what your thoughts are on some of our ideas and options, but most crucially of all, your thoughts on whether we've missed anything, whether you think we're going too far or being too ambitious or not being ambitious enough, and which directions you feel we should be moving into. So as you know, we're hosting a series of webinars covering the 5 different topics individually over the summer to help give you a chance to learn more about the topics and to ask any questions you might have. So today is sustainable infrastructure. We'll also have flood risk and green infrastructure sessions over the coming weeks with both daytime and evening slots. We held carbon reduction and placemaking sessions last week, but if you did miss any of those and you wanted to attend, the recordings will be on our website very shortly if they're not up already. We'd be also grateful for any feedback you have on this webinar. This is the first series of sort of webinar-based consultation events that we've done in the local planning section. So it'd be great to have any constructive feedback you have. Please use the email address there at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so that's it in terms of housekeeping. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Caroline to begin the presentation on sustainable infrastructure topic of the local plan update. Over to you, Caroline.
Thank you, Adam. So just a quick overview of the structure for today. We're covering the topics within the sustainable infrastructure section of the consultation material. So going through in turn HS2 and Leeds Station, followed by mass transit, Leeds Bradford Airport and digital connectivity before moving on to the Q&A. And as Adam has said, if you've got any questions even now or as we're going through, if you type them into the Q&A box, we'll be happy to answer them at the end. So the railway network is hugely important for Leeds' economy and the decarbonising of transport. Over the next 2 decades, Leeds Station, which is already the busiest in the north of England, is expected to see passenger numbers double as more people choose to travel by more sustainable modes of transport. We'll also see substantial investment being made into our railway infrastructure, with the High Speed 2 and Northern Powerhouse rail schemes having the potential to transform our intercity connections. Now, it's very important to recognise the limits to what the local plan update can do in relation to this topic. Decisions about which combination of railway network improvements will be prioritised for funding, including whether the HS2 line will even reach Leeds, lie in the hands of central government. Permission for the HS2 line would be granted through a hybrid bill through Parliament rather than through the usual planning application process overseen by the City Council. And it's also through this hybrid bill process that decisions about the route that the line takes, the measures that will be taken to minimise or offset any adverse impacts, and things such as what land is acquired to make way for the line will be made. And whilst the Council has and will continue to actively engage with HS2 Limited and the Department of Transport on this to try and secure the best outcomes for Leeds, this is not something that this local plan update, which is what this consultation focuses on and what we're talking about today, can control. However, what we can do for the local plan update is ensure that there are policies in place so that we're in the best position to respond to whatever decisions are made about HS2 and to help to integrate the line into our city. We think this will have a particularly important role in the urban areas where HS2 will open up new brownfield development opportunities and offer potential for changes in land use. At the current point in time, we're focusing on what a new high-level strategic policy, like those in the core strategy, might say. The specific implications that HS2 has for particular sites, including the need for any new or revised allocations or guidance, will come later when we have more certainty about the HS2 scheme and we're closer to those sites becoming available. There's a wide range of different things that we think a policy could potentially pick up on. The first of these is Leeds Station. As some of you may be aware, significant investment and development is due to take place at the station over the next decade. This aims to ensure that the station can accommodate the predicted increases in passenger numbers, incorporate HS2, the TransPennine upgrade and the Northern Powerhouse rail improvements, and more generally improve the station environment so it forms a more fitting and welcoming entrance to our city. To ensure that the station can continue to function whilst this work takes place, this will be phased over a number of years. And although the station is mentioned on many occasions within our existing planning documents, they don't provide the support or guidance that we think would be useful in bringing this all together and ensuring that all development in and around the station works towards the same overall vision. We think a new policy could potentially address this, giving additional weight to design principles for the station, emphasising the importance of connectivity and accessibility through the station and the role that a second southern entrance could have as part of that, and potentially setting out how much new floor space will be created and the uses that this would be suitable for. More broadly, a policy could also address development opportunities. To enable the construction of the HS2 line, land along and surrounding the proposed route will be acquired by HS2 Limited and cleared. The HS2 line is also proposed to travel from Woodland to Leeds city centre on a viaduct, and we think it's important that we consider how we make best use of the space under this viaduct. How this land could or should be used once construction is complete will vary depending on the location. In some instances, it may just revert back to its previous use, whilst in other places there may be an opportunity for something different, be that as development land, public spaces, landscaping or ecological enhancements, to provide pedestrian, vehicular or cycling connections, or for uses associated with the operation of the railway. Pardon me. What is appropriate is likely to differ by area, and the types of uses that are suitable around the station may be likely to differ from that in Hunslet or Sturton, for example, and this is something that the policy could pick up on. The policy could also have a role in supporting and enhancing pedestrian, cycle and bridleway connections along and across the HS2 line. In addition, a policy could highlight the importance of any new public spaces integrating with the green space network, as well as support potential opportunities for a new public park alongside the proposed HS2 rolling stock depot that will be built at Sturton, or the expansion of Rothwell Country Park and Waterhay Woodland Park, which we know would be adversely impacted by the construction of the line. A policy could also seek to maximise the potential contribution to addressing climate change, including highlighting the importance of any new buildings associated with HS2 being built to high standards of energy efficiency, and support the provision of new green infrastructure, tree planting, flood alleviation and sustainable urban drainage measures. Finally, we think that a policy could also encourage temporary meanwhile uses of construction land in some places. HS2 is likely to take over 10 years to build, and not all of the land acquired for construction purposes will be needed solidly throughout this time. Opportunities to keep places vibrant and attractive with temporary uses could be encouraged in suitable locations. Through this consultation, we're keen to hear your views and thoughts on this potential policy area. And in particular, we ask, do you agree that the local plan update should include a new policy on Leeds Station and HS2? And if so, what are your views on our suggestions about what this policy could focus on? If you've got any questions about this proposed topic, if you put them in the Q&A box, and we'll be happy to answer them in the second half of this webinar. So moving on then, the next potential policy area considered under the sustainable infrastructure topic is mass transit. And the West Yorkshire Combined Authority is putting together plans to develop a new mass transit network across West Yorkshire. This aims to add extra capacity to the public transport network, filling in the gap between buses and heavy rail and making it easier for people to move across West Yorkshire by sustainable modes of transport. It has the potential to play an important role in helping to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve air quality. Plans for the mass transit network are still at an early stage, and at the current point in time, no decisions have been made about the technology that would be used or the exact route it would take. And as with HS2, there are limits to the role of the local plan update in planning for and developing this network. The local plan update will not determine whether mass transit goes ahead, its route or the technology used. Accordingly, this consultation is not about the principle of mass transit, but about how we could respond to it with planning policies. And we think that planning policies can have an important role in helping to support the delivery of mass transit and maximise the benefits it may present to places along the route. At present, there are no planning policies related to mass transit in Leeds. We do make references to NGT or New Generation Transport, which had been proposed as a trolleybus scheme for Leeds, but this did not proceed. Mass transit is a different scheme, which is being designed and promoted by the West Yorkshire Combined Authority at a city region level. And we think that a planning policy on mass transit could have an important role in supporting the effective delivery of the proposed network. It could plan for the integration of the line into the places that it passes through, including connections with the green space network, pedestrian and cycle routes, and future developments. In doing this, it could help to realise the wider benefits of the route to the places along the line. And once a specific route for the network has been established, planning policies could also protect this route from alternative forms of development that might get in the way and prevent the delivery of mass transit. So again, we're really keen to hear your views on this potential policy area through this consultation. And in particular, we're asking, do you agree that the local plan update should include a policy on mass transit? And if so, what elements of the scheme would you like to see the policy focus on? And once again, if you've got any questions, if you put them in the Q&A box, and we'll answer them in the Q&A session at the end. And I'm now going to pass back to Adam, who's going to talk to you about the airport.
Thanks, Caroline. And yes, the slides up there, so that's perfect. Thank you very much. We recognise that the airport is a divisive issue. So just to clarify, this is the airport section of the discussion. So yes, we recognise that the airport is a divisive issue. As we say in the consultation material, emissions arising from aviation are significant. The Council has said that aviation growth and meeting zero carbon targets are fundamentally incompatible until such time as new technologies are developed. However, the Council also recognises the contribution that local airport makes to the local economy and the thousands of jobs directly and indirectly dependent on it, along with the benefits that international travel brings, both for businesses and individuals. So the current picture is that a balance is being struck between economic and environmental objectives. As many of you will already know, a planning application for a new larger terminal and for increased flights has been approved by the Council having taken all arguments on all sides into account. This application is currently being considered by the Secretary of State for a final decision. That application was granted under existing policy, primarily within the core strategy. However, new policy can help manage future development at the airport or determine future schemes should the current proposal not be implemented. There is also a changing picture at a national level in terms of the consideration of aviation emissions. As we say in the consultation material, within this review, it will be important to be guided by both current and emerging national guidance on airport development. One change that has already taken place is that the government has now signalled its intention to include aviation and shipping emissions within the UK carbon budget. Whilst the Carbon Budget Order 2021 came into force on the 24th of June, setting the revised carbon budget for 2033 to 2037, the 2008 Climate Change Act itself has not yet been updated, although it is understood that this is a formality. The government also began consulting on its Jet Zero strategy on the 14th of July this year, and the consultation sets out the government's plans for a strategy to deliver net zero aviation emissions by 2050. Now, obviously, that document doesn't form part of our consultation, but is important context. We'd welcome your views on how these two recent changes to the government's approach to aviation emissions could influence policy at the Leeds local level. If you just move to the next slide, please, Caroline. So as part of this consultation, we're therefore asking the following questions. Do you agree that the local plan update should contain new or updated policies for Leeds Bradford Airport? And if so, do you have any views on what new or updated policies should contain? And the second question we're asking is related to that balance that I've referred to earlier. National planning policy refers to the importance of achieving sustainable development in environmental, economic, and social terms. Should changes be made to airport policies within the local plan update to improve the balance between these three aspects of sustainability? Okay, so I'll pause there, just allow you to digest those questions. And as Caroline said, we'll obviously take any questions that you have on those questions and any others at the end of the session. But now I'll hand over to Nasreen on the digital connectivity.
Thank you, Adam. I'll move on to digital connectivity. So the provision of digital connectivity is considered to be essential infrastructure for our modern lives. It is considered by many as important as the provision of other utilities such as electricity and gas in new build developments. Broadband or gigabit connectivity is now relied on heavily to work, learn, and to stay entertained at home. The proposed policy relates to broadband connectivity in new build houses and commercial development and does not include 5G. The COVID-19 pandemic has in particular highlighted the essential need for digital infrastructure, with increasing reliance on remote working, remote communication to include homeschooling, online shopping, and other services. The government is aiming for 85% of homes to have access to a gigabit broadband connection by 2025. Leeds would like to take a proactive approach in encouraging the development industry to provide digital connectivity from the outset for all new developments. This local plan update sets out a proposal for the inclusion of a new policy which encourages the provision of digital broadband connectivity for all new developments. The focus of the policy is to allow Leeds to develop good quality housing and commercial development, which meets the needs of a gigabit of broadband connectivity as part of a planning application. This will ensure, where all possible, all new build development is designed with broadband connectivity from the outset. Next slide, please. There are many benefits of such a policy approach, and these include the following: providing housing which meets the needs of our modern lives, providing new housing which would be designed and built with good broadband connectivity from the outset, ensuring that new housing would not be retrofitted later with digital connectivity provision, to future-proof new housing, ensuring that digital infrastructure is sympathetically designed as part of development of essential infrastructure, and finally, and not least importantly, but to reduce digital poverty. It is also worth mentioning that the government have set out an intention that they will introduce a mandatory requirement for digital connectivity, possibly through the building regulations. In March 2020, the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport announced that the government will legislate to make sure new build homes with gigabit speed broadband connectivity are fit for the future. The move will mean that developers will be legally required to install high quality digital infrastructure from the outset, making it a priority as part of the build and ensuring that broadband companies are on board from the beginning. What we don't know as of yet is exactly what that requirement will be and when it will be required. In the meantime, we would like to be proactive and encourage a digital connectivity policy should this not happen or be delayed at a national level. Another national move is that some of the big house builders are also seeking to provide digital connectivity. In January this year, the first house builder, Barratt Developments, announced that they will work with providers to ensure that gigabit capable broadband infrastructure is installed as standard across their new UK build developments for sites of 20 plus properties, with a reduced rate for smaller sites where developers make a contribution towards the build. This shows that the industry is keen to develop digital infrastructure as an essential part of development. It is also likely that other developers will follow in time. This is positive as it shows that the development industry is keen to create development with suitable infrastructure. Next slide, please. At this stage of consultation, we are seeking your views as to whether you support a digital connectivity policy and to understand any concerns or comments that you have. But some of the questions we would like to seek your views are, do you agree that digital connectivity is essential infrastructure for new housing development in Leeds? Why? Do you agree that a digital policy should be introduced? And again, why? And should commercial development as well as residential development be considered as part of the scope of the policy? Thank you for listening. I'll now pass on to Adam for question and answers for all of the topic areas.
Okay, I'm seeing that we don't have any questions at the moment. Don't be shy. If you've got any questions for the team, please put them in. And so I'll pause for a few minutes just to give people a chance to kind of reflect on what they've heard. And if they do want to put any questions in the chats, obviously feel free. So we'll just pause at this stage and see what people have got to say. Cal, I think we've got more a comment through than a question, but it's nice to receive anyway.
It is, yeah. Thanks, Adam. Just a comment that this person appreciates all your hard work to prepare this great effort, and they need some time to reflect. If you do have any questions later at any point, you can email us at lpu@leeds.gov.uk and we'll get any answers to you.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Thank you, Carl, and thank you for the comment. It's much appreciated. I think we recognise there's a lot of material that we're sharing, both individually in this section here today, but across the suite of the 5 topics. So there's a lot to digest, and we understand that will take time. So please, everyone who hasn't had the chance to go on to our website, please do. Take your time to go through the material. We've got a range of different ways of responding as well. So for those who've got limited time, we've got short surveys, but for those who'd like to answer the full suite of questions, we've got a full consultation survey as well. So we're trying to spread that out in ways that are convenient to you. And if you do have any questions when you come across that material and think, oh, I wish I would have asked that at the webinar, as Cal says, please just email us at that address that's on screen, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Okay, well, I'll probably leave it there, to be honest, because I think I'll pause till 58 past, just for the evenness of it.
Oh, I think we've had a question actually, Adam.
Oh, we got another one. See, this is
Yeah.
why you pause. Excellent. Okay, over to you, Carl.
So, on the HS2 issue, and recognising that much of this is out of the local authorities' hands, is there an opportunity to use the local plan to make a statement about Leeds' approach to protecting woodland and so-called ancient woodland, if indeed there is any in the Leeds district?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a really, it's sort of a tricky balance to strike, making sure that in terms of making sure that what the planning policy focuses on is things that are in our control. So I think, but at the same time, I think we can use the policy to sort of flag up things that we think are important in Leeds, to sort of try and put, you know, to sort of support our negotiations with HS2, and to support, you know, as the proposals, if they proceed through the sort of the hybrid bill process and go in front of the select committee, there's potential we can use the planning policy wouldn't have official weight in that process, but it's certainly something that we could reference. So I think in terms of woodland in particular, I don't think, obviously ancient woodlands already has protection in itself as through the planning system as ancient woodland, and similarly, you know, a number of trees are already protected as with tree preservation orders. So I'm not sure that there's necessarily a lot that we could add through the planning policy onto that, because I think that protection's already there. It's more that, you know, in making their decisions about where HS2 goes and what the impact that's going to be, the proposal, you know, they recognise there's going to be an impact there, but they're suggesting that is going to be mitigated. But I think there are things that we could potentially do through the policy in terms of trees and potentially tree planting or encouraging that in particular locations. So yeah, I think it's tricky trying to get the balance between being aspirational about what we can do for the policy, but also realistic, making sort of recognising that to be found sound, a policy is going to have to be seen to be reasonable and effective in order to get through, you know, satisfy a planning inspector. So I think as we sort of continue sort of working up this policy, yeah, these are the sort of things we're going to be having to think about. Where can we strike that balance?
Thanks very much, Caroline, for that answer. We have another question. There is nothing currently in the consultation about promotion of walking and cycling. Is this because the existing policy framework is considered adequate, or should more emphasis be given to these sustainable modes?
I'm happy to take that on. It's a good question, and I understand that under a sustainable infrastructure topic heading, there might be an expectation that there'd be something around what we call active modes of travel, which are non-car based. These are actually really contained and expressed within the placemaking topic that for which webinars were held last week, and that's about looking at what new developments look like, how they're laid out, and how they connect into existing transport, with a view to making them as sustainable as they can be in terms of reducing the need to travel, because the Leeds Climate Commission recognises that one of the key ways planning can help get to carbon neutrality is by moving us out of our cars and into sustainable alternatives. The other thing to say on that is that the local plan team are working very closely with transport colleagues who are responsible for a strategy called Connecting Leeds, which is our local transport plan, which sets out where the council's investment and other investments are being pulled together to improve infrastructure within the city. that's where a lot of the new cycle routes and new efforts to make cycling more attractive are going to be placed, supported by policies through the placemaking part of the plan. So it's a really important issue. It's one that we're taking on board and are giving consideration to. I don't know, Adam, whether there's anything else you want to add to that.
Yeah, just to say, however, if you read through the full material and still feel that actually you don't think enough is made of walking or cycling, you'd like to see strengthened policy or more, better connections between policy areas, please let us know through the consultation. It may be that you feel that we're not pulling out that really important issue, or we haven't clarified it in the way that we'd intended to. So any comments you have on that, please make them clear in the consultation, and that'll help us further clarify things when we get to the next stage, which is when we're starting to write the more detailed policies.
Thanks, Adam and Martin. We've got no other questions at the moment.
So I was rewarded for pausing slightly last time, so I'll give it one more minute and we'll see if there's any more questions. But then we can always finish early and leave you to have free 27 minutes to yourselves. So I'll pause till 4 minutes past, and then we'll see where we get to.
We've got another one.
You see, this is why we wait. Yeah.
Airport expansion was overwhelmingly rejected in the climate conversation. The current planning application for the new building has been called in. Surely Leeds City Council needs to take a stronger approach here.
Martin, I don't know if you wanted to
Yeah,
cover
I'm happy to take that, and that's exactly the sort of response that we'd welcome through this consultation. We have an existing policy on managing the growth of the airport. A decision on the airport expansion was taken, having considered current government policy, which pointed to the fact that aircraft emissions were something that would be primarily dealt with at the national level and addressed through international agreements and protocols. The reason for that is, rather than sort of suppressing growth at individual airports in a way that would sort of export passengers from Leeds to other nearby evidence at a higher sort of financial cost to them, would have impacts for their own carbon journeys to airports like Manchester. But it would also damage Leeds potentially in terms of its economic ambitions. So there's a massive balancing exercise to be undertaken here. And what the council's done with respect to aviation is lobby government to get more clarity in terms of the role of regional airports, smaller regional airports, within the national climate emergency that the government itself is working towards. So we're seeing, as Adam said, some further clarity coming out of government on that through their recent consultation documents. We'll have to take a view on what that means in terms of any further growth at Leeds Bradford Airport, taking into account that the decision's already been made for the current expansion. But certainly we're happy to take views on this and your views on how far we could and should be going. But one of the things that we do have to make sure we do is follow national guidance and provide policies which are sound and deliverable within the city.
Thanks very much, Martin. We have well, it's more a question here. I work with some charities. How can we share this learning with them?
I think that's a really good question. I think probably the best way, just to that individual, but anyone obviously who's thinking on the same lines, if you want to just drop us an email, we can talk about maybe set up a meeting about how we might want to sort of talk to some of those charities that you work with. Happy to host kind of any similar webinars to this, or workshops, or more bespoke meetings if that's convenient. So really keen to talk to as many people as possible. So if you want to drop us an email at the lpu@leeds.gov.uk website, we'll see what we can do to make sure that we're having those really important conversations and pitching material the way that works best for attendees. So if that's helpful.
Yeah.
I would just add to that obviously please do get in touch if you want us to help facilitate that. But there are webinars on our website which are very short and set out the 5 topics. So feel free to use those webinars yourself and share those links. But as Adam said, we'd also be more than happy to help you do that.
Yeah, so just to access those, you just need, if you go into the website and click onto any one of the topic areas apart from the introduction, all 5 of them have a short introductory video of about sort of varying between about 2 and 4 minutes. So hopefully they help introduce the topic. So if you can have a look at those, if you still have lots of questions after this webinar and watching those, just let us know. But yeah, just to reiterate, it'd be great to have more conversations. So just get in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. We've got no more questions at the moment.
Okay, well, I'll probably call it there. It was great for those small the small number of questions, which were all really good questions, really useful, and the exact kind of questions that we need to be thinking about and hearing about through the consultation. Obviously, I'd encourage you all, if you haven't already, to go back to the consultation material and make sure you give your responses by the 13th of September. Can I thank you all for attending? It's really much appreciated, giving up your lunch breaks or your time at work or time your personal time to be here is very much appreciated. Can I also thank the panelists, particularly those for their presentations, and for Cal for managing the Q&A as always. Thanks, Martin, for attending as well. So yeah, I guess all that remains is just say goodbye, enjoy the rest of your afternoons, and see you for the next webinar. Okay, bye-bye everyone. Cheers.